give credit to the Palestinians for attempting, those that are still alive and can still function, the ability to try to rebuild what was destroyed. And essentially what you have are these little shanty towns. And shanty towns can't survive any type of a serious weather situation like flooding. And here is our good friend from Code Pink, Medea Benjamin, talking about exactly what's going on in Gaza right now, that no one is talking about in mainstream or even mostly independent media. Frankly, I haven't seen anybody talk about this.
What's happening to the tents in Gaza now that the rains have started? These were never meant to be homes. They're flimsy canvas thrown up after people's houses were bombed. And now that the winter rains have come, water is pouring in. Floors turn into brown rivers of sewage and trash. Children wake up in the dark screaming because icy water is rushing into their tent. Mothers hold up their babies off the flooded ground, wrapping them in wet blankets, and elderly people are trapped on soaked mattresses.
They just want them to die. They're hoping they all just die.
Yeah, I was watching, Ben Norton did a really good segment on this, guys. If you don't watch Geopolitical Economy Report, I recommend it. But talking about how this plan that they're now putting into place where there's the green zone and the red zones in Gaza. And what they're doing is the green zone is where it's going to be like Trumpapalooza and, you know, like the Riviera of Gaza and all this stuff. And then the red zone where they have now forced all the Palestinians, which is about half the size of Gaza that they were living in. So they cut the concentration camp size in half. And that side is not going to have any means of rebuilding. They're literally living in rubble and they will have nothing coming in to help them. There's no aid going in. They are wanting them to just want to leave. And there's part of that in their plan is seeking a voluntary migration of Palestinians. But this is very purposeful, what's happening.
I agree.
With nowhere dry to go. And the world is told, relax, there's a ceasefire and aid is flowing in. But that's a big lie. Israel promised at least 600 aid trucks a day under this deal, enough to at least start feeding people and get medicines into the clinics and bring clean water and more shelter. But they violate this every single day. In fact, the average has been about 170 trucks. That's a third of what was promised.
Do you know how many aid trucks need to be getting in there in order to save these Palestinians' lives? About 2,000 need to be getting in there every day.
Yeah. Well, again, they all they're doing is confining them into a smaller and smaller space and cutting them off from more and more things. So, and, you know, yet there's people that somehow think that Trump got a ceasefire. Like that actually is a thing. That's not even a thing.
I would imagine that most people at this point probably don't think that anymore. Only the ones that want to live with their heads buried in the sand.
Well, like Fox News viewers and such.
More than just them.
And this shortfall is catastrophic. Every truck that Israel blocks is a hospital without supplies, a family without food or shelter. And what about the fire part of the ceasefire? Israeli forces are killing Palestinians every single day. Drone strikes, shelling, sniper fire. Ceasefire means you stop killing people. It means you let in the aid you promised. It means full protection of civilians. Please don't take your eyes off Gaza or off the Israeli regime. The genocide continues, and so must our support. Free Palestine.
Yeah.
I don't know how she does it, but somehow she manages to continue fighting as she did when she was a kid, fighting against the war in Vietnam. So this doesn't surprise me. But yeah, I wish I could say that there was something positive to talk about. Unfortunately, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We are going to now transition to Al Jazeera. If anyone thought for a second that Israel was trying to do the right thing, well, I think everybody knows that that's not their MO, and it never will be. So, aid still woefully short of Gaza needs as heavy rains winter approaches. And that's the other thing that I think needs to be mentioned here. You know, you're also talking about a situation where you have the cold season coming in. And I also don't think people realize that everyone's like, oh, the desert is so hot. Yes, it is. But do you know how cold the desert can get at night?
Exactly. Exactly. It gets freezing there at night, and it gets freezing and rainy at night. It's miserable.
UNRWA slams Israel for crippling Gaza efforts. Despite the ceasefire mandating the passage of humanitarian aid, only a fraction of that needed for the population has been let in by Israel. Could you imagine living like this?
No. I cannot fathom living in any way under the level of oppression that Palestinians have been living under for almost 100 years. But no, I cannot fathom living in a cold and rainy, miserable tent. I mean, I can, but that was camp, and it's not this, but it's not a good way to be.
Yes, we have, Kathy. We have one. It's called the Revolutionary Change Pack.
But we did, and we actually did an episode with Michael Rechtenwald. He's been on our show. We support them. They support us. We are on the same team as them, and we want to cross promote. They have candidates they're supporting. We have candidates we're supporting. But yeah, we have solidarity with the AZA PAC.
100%. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has accused Israel of deliberately crippling its operations and blocking the entry of vital aid to Gaza amid its more than 2-year genocidal war, as Palestinians face the onset of heavy rains and winter with sparse shelter or relief. Safeguarding UNRWA's mandate and operations is required under international law. It is vital to the survival of millions of Palestinians, and it is essential for a political solution. That is UNRWA Commissioner General Felipe Lazzarini told the UN General Assembly Fourth Committee on Thursday, citing recent findings by the UN Commission of Inquiry and rulings by the ICJ, obligating Israel to lift restrictions on the agency. Lazzarini also told a news conference at the UN headquarters in New York that several funding shortfalls were threatening UNRWA's essential services, urging donor nations for more money so that it could continue its operations in Gaza despite funding cuts by the U.S. Israel has barred UNRWA from operating on its soil after baselessly accusing some of its employees of participating in the October 7, 2023 attack on southern Israel, which triggered the genocide, not war. Israel has repeatedly accused UNRWA employees of involvement in the October 7th attack without providing any proof. Well, that shouldn't surprise anybody. Now, should it, Jen?
No, I mean, that was the story from 2 years ago where they claimed that there was a whole bunch of UNRWA employees that were Hamas and showed no evidence, but yet a whole bunch of people lost their jobs and were like, and there's never any sort of accountability for this. There's never any accountability for this. It's coming.
No, and yet they really want us to believe that we are ever going to accept Israel as a society ever again. And this also, this will transition into the conclusion of this story after what Israel's trying to do right now, but we'll get to that in a minute. But it still employs 12,000 people in the Palestinian territory, and its services are vital to Palestinians. About 75,000 people were sheltered in 100 of our premises across the Gaza Strip. We have over the last 2 years, provided more than 15 million primary health consultations. Today, the average is about 14,000 a day. He added, also noting the agency's joint vaccination campaign with UNICEF and the WHO, UNRWA also provides education for tens of thousands of children. In the absence of a significant influx of new funding, the delivery of critical services to millions of Palestinian refugees across the region will be compromised. While U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said UNRWA will have no role in post-war Gaza in sync with Israeli demands, Lazzarini noted that since the U.S. brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hamas took hold, we have expanded our services. Terrifying nightmare for a lot of families. Under the ceasefire, which took effect on October 10th, not really, and which Israel has violated hundreds of times. How do you call that a ceasefire then? Aid deliveries were supposed to be significantly ramped up, with at least 600 trucks a day due to enter Gaza and fulfill the population's needs. However, only 150 trucks have been entering Gaza daily, carrying supplies that are not sufficient for the 2 million Palestinians that are currently displaced and homeless. Again, they are not giving an accurate count. Friend of the show, Anthony Aguilar, pointed out today that at least, according to Israeli statistics, at least 600,000 Palestinians are now dead, and Lord knows how many more will be dead as a result of not only this famine, but you add in a winter freeze to go with the famine. Like I said, their goal, kill them all as fast as possible.
And no sanitary measures. They have no infrastructure. So like what Medea was saying, which is what's happening, is when it's raining and it's flooding, it's sewage. It's trash and sewage. So, you know, this leads to a lot of other complications, which...
The lack of supplies has prompted the UN to warn that the hunger crisis in Gaza remains catastrophic, particularly in the north, where famine was declared in August. Get the hell off my frickin' screen. Fuck you, Israel!
It's okay. We get the gist. The gist is that Israel has not abided by any of the terms of the agreement that they signed, not that they ever do. And yeah, but I would encourage everyone to check out Ben Norton's report on this new plan that's the green zone and the red zone that they're creating. And more importantly, what it's really connected to, because it's very eye-opening to see it from the perspective of the big picture. And the big picture is it's actually a strategic move in the Cold War with China. And it has to do with creating routes of trade that will compete with their Belt and Road Initiative that they are creating and working on. And Gaza is part of that plan for us. So there's a bigger picture here, which I just thought was very fascinating.
I mean, I run out of words to say for these people. I do. And like I said, I've lived in very hard conditions. So I know what it's like to live in the cold. I know what it's like to not have a lot of options in terms of food. You know, survival instincts kick in for sure, but this is like, it's still inconceivable how we're watching a genocide in real time and people are just not doing what they need to be doing. I'm grateful that there is this anti-Israel movement that is going to overwhelm them at some point. The Zionists will lose the fight in the long run in the United States. But to say that it is heartbreaking that we can't do more for these Palestinian people, but as you said, we have to bear witness to this. We must document this. It's much like General Eisenhower said when he was part of the liberation of Dachau. He said, take as many photographs as you need to, take as much video as you need to, and if you choose to deal with these soldiers in the fashion that you choose to deal with them in, that's your business. I didn't see anything. Why? Because somebody is going to stand up one day and say that this never happened. Now, of course, we know that there is always exaggeration, but I also believe that part and parcel, we are living in a world today where the Zionists truly, as a collective, do not understand what's coming for them. They don't understand how the world is going to reject them and how eventually it probably will lead to simpler types of violence.